Like my coffee black, like my women. That's an airplane joke, I think. I like my coffee pretty much anyway. Um, I think I prefer. Never mind. As far as my women preference, let's stop with. And don't call me Shirley. Um, airplane again. So we are in chapter 26. Another thing that happened at work before I start on these notes, I had a lady. There's another lady there that doesn't have a tongue. There's a guy with no tongue and there's a lady with no tongue. And I remember helping this lady all the way back at Christmas time. I helped her find a Christmas tree. And now this lady is much more difficult to understand than the guy. But I was ringing her out, and there's this group of like 5 kids that were running around in circles. One had a football throwing it around and swinging all the stuff around and everything. And this woman without her tongue, she still yelled at these kids. And I just thought it was good because, and I could understand what she was saying, even though she couldn't say it. She was saying respect. You know, it is so disrespectful. These kids are so disrespectful. And these kids ran away from her when she started. She's not really yelling. She's like moaning, like, "Ah!" I can't even, because she doesn't have, I don't think she has a tongue, or she has some kind of disability with her speech. She can't enunciate her words. But and then I said to her, I really like your crucifix there. She was wearing a crucifix, and I think she saw that I had a Bible out. And then she was looking at me like, and I was like, I totally agree with you. Even though I couldn't, you couldn't comprehend what the moaning was sounding. I knew exactly where she was coming from, because half these kids that come into my store are just like that. They're so disrespectful. It was so great. So I thought that was good. Anyway, we're reading through 26. We're looking at the notes. You got the trial, you got the agony in the garden, you got the betrayal by Judas. Verse 26 there, the institution of the New Testament, salvation, Simon Peter's failure and the king's victory, then arrest, a legal trial of the king, yep. And Simon Peter's second failure. So you have a lot to go through with these notes in 26, so we're probably going to be here for a while. So let's start with this first note on verse 2. Ye know that after 2 days is the feast of the Passover, and the Son of Man is betrayed to be crucified. This verse takes place on Tuesday, making Thursday the Passover feast day. See note on Matthew 12:40. The supper of verses 6 through 13 does not take place 2 days before the Passover. The passage is parenthetical. John 12:1 tells you Jesus came to Bethany 6 days before the Passover. The day after the supper was the Sunday of Christ's triumphal entry, John 12:12. Jesus entered Bethany just before Friday, 6 p.m. He spent the Sabbath there and attended the supper Saturday evening. 6 days from the time the Lord came to Bethany would place the Passover feast on Thursday, making the crucifixion on Wednesday, not Good Friday. For a detailed study See Appendix 156 of Bullinger's Companion Bible. This would be another detailed argument that I'm betting a lot of atheists will argue about time frame and, you know, come up with an excuse to cause you to doubt the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus. And Chris was saying to me just last time I was with him, there were like over 500 witnesses, direct recorded testimonies, and there's all kinds of evidence. He was also saying to me the evidence for the Bible, scientifically and mathematically, you really study it. You know, atheists say to you all the time, the Bible is the most compromised blah, blah, blah book. You know, they come up with every challenge to it as the Codex Hammurabi or the blah, blah, blah book or whatever, that has so much more solid historical proof than that stinking Bible. But really, you start to study prophecy and the mathematics and all that with it. I mean, you kind of find a factual, historical, evidence-based, logical position. I believe it and I feel it. But if I actually wanted to be mathematical and scientific and nerdy and everything, and Star Trek, like analyze the data with the tricorder and everything, you know, if I wanted to do all that, I could do that. I'm more like Mr. Worf though now. I'm becoming more, you know, just take the batleth to it and just get away from me, you know. I used to be more like Mr. Scott in engineering, you know, just keeping the ship running and giving her all she's got. But now I'm becoming, I don't know. I believe it and I trust him and he makes sense. And if you go the Satan way or you go the science way that rejects the Bible, you become a, you know what I mean? You become a blankety blank, a incompetent fool. Just say that. You become a jerk, usually. Most people that reject the Bible become rotten. All right. But that's the goal with that, with trying to challenge the chain of time frames and everything, chain of evidence related to that. But I think there's plenty of evidence. And I think if you try to disprove the Bible, you probably, there's a guy that, we were talking about that, or somebody, some big name that tried to disprove the Bible, atheist, and he became a born-again Christian. So why don't you all try to disprove it? Disprove it to me right now. Leave it in the comments. Disprove it so that you can become a born-again Christian. See? That's how you do it. But as far as a personal example of what happened, I had 4 homosexuals in my store over the weekend. I'll tell you about that at the start of next video. We got to stay with the notes, but I'll tell you about the homosexuals at the start of next video. We gotta keep moving here. We got a long way to go, but it's related to that subject. 26:8. But when his disciples saw it, they had indignation, saying, "To what purpose is this waste?" The word waste is related to the word perdition in John 17:12 and Apollyon, the angel of the bottomless pit, in Revelation 9:11. These all point to Judas Iscariot as the instigator of the question, John 12:4, although he is not mentioned by name here. Right. I was going to say that, but he clarified there, you know. So that's pretty self-explanatory, right? 26:20. Now when the even was come, he sat down with the 12. The sitting here is not on chairs at a table, all facing the same direction, as is pictured in Da Vinci's silly, non-historical Catholic painting of the Last Supper. The apostles and Jesus are reclining on beds or couches in a horizontal position. See Esther 7:8, Amos 6:4. So we could go to those. I'd rather reference cartoon, South Park. They really mocked that picture. It was a South Park episode. Jason and I were talking about it, where it's pretty horrible, but they make fun of the Easter holiday, how it's Ishtar. So how did they blend Christianity with Easter? And what's the big conspiracy? They turned like the whole Easter holiday and why everybody dresses up like Easter rabbits, including Stan's dad, what is Stan's dad? Randy Marsh. You know, he dresses up like an Easter rabbit, and he's asking his dad, like, "Why are you doing this? It's so dumb," you know. And then it ends up being like this secret society thing, and they try to say that the origin of this secret society, probably a Freemason reference, and they show this picture of the Last Supper, and instead they say that instead of Peter being a human, it's actually Peter Rabbit was. See, that's how it actually was. You know, he was a rabbit, and they show the picture of the Last Supper. They're mocking that picture that they're talking about here, but then they have Peter as a rabbit sitting there, and so talking about Peter being the first pope, and he was actually a rabbit, Peter Rabbit. So, and then that's why you have all the rabbit stuff. So South Park was just mocking the holiday, but really you can look at it as mocking the Catholic Church, and they do mock the Pope in that episode. They mock everything on that show. Some of it's good, some of it's really bad, but that's what that makes me think of. Anyway, 26:22. And they were exceeding sorrowful, and began every one of them to say unto them, Lord, is it I? There are three different questions asked by the disciples in regards to Christ's betrayal. 10 of them asked, Lord, is it I? Each of them believed it could be him. John's conscience, however, though, was clear in this matter. He asked, Lord, who is it? John 13:25. But when Judas asked, he did not call Jesus Lord. He said, Master, is it I? Judas was the only disciple who consistently called Jesus Master and never Lord. Matthew 26:49, Mark 13:1, John 13:13. Maybe that's a good warning to me, you know. Maybe I'm not. If Judas is calling him Master, then maybe I shouldn't be calling him that, you know. Call him Lord. Although I don't. I mean, they all end up running away, you know, so they all betray him, really. But Judas is the direct betrayal that causes him to be arrested and everything. 26:26. And as they were eating, Jesus took bread and blessed it and brake it and gave it to the disciples and said, Take, eat, this is my body. Verses 26 through 29 are the basis for the Roman Catholic sacrament of the Mass. The official, infallible Roman Catholic teaching on the passage is transubstantiation, i.e., the bread and wine, see note on verse 29, are transformed into the literal body and blood of the Lord Jesus Christ, thus constituting an act of cannibalism when you eat the wafer. The Latin expression for this is my body is hocest, or is it hocest? Oh, hocest corpus, from which comes the phrase hocus pocus. Yeah, that's what I was thinking of. Referring to an act of black magic performed by a witch doctor. Jesus Christ refers to his body 3 times in the Gospels. He calls it a temple in John 2:19. He calls it a rock in Matthew 16:18. And he calls it bread here. Not once is any expression to be taken literally. Whenever Paul spoke of the body of Christ in regards to the Lord's Supper, it had nothing to do with the physical body of Jesus Christ, which sat at the table at the Lord's Supper, nor did it have anything to do with the elements of the Lord's Supper. I had a history teacher that would, when I was stupid back then, I was so dumb, and I didn't know any better, but this guy would mock us if you were a Catholic and you thought this was literal, and if you raised your hand, it was almost like he was saying, "All right, everybody, look at the moron." So it's not literal, and I'm not calling you a moron if you think it's literal, or if you're Catholic, you know. I mean, what does he say there? It's an act of cannibalism. If you're doing this and black magic, there is a problem there, doctrinally speaking. And look at these history teachers mocking you over it. It's a problem. You guys there needs to be a big reformation of all this and realization how messed up we've been, So you got to be careful there, and you don't. Thus constituting an act of cannibalism when you eat the wafer. The Latin expression for this is my body, is hocest corpus, from which comes the phrase hocus pocus, referring to an act of black magic performed by a witch doctor. I think of that. I think of the song. There's a song that you would play in Catholic Church during the Eucharist thing, when you know what would happen to me, just to make you laugh. Okay, let's just be lighthearted about this, and it shows how messed up I am too. Is what I would worry about at church, at Catholic Church? You have the song, one bread, one body, one Lord of all. I think that's how the song goes. It's a pretty sounding song, but when you take it as literal, then you apply the black magic thinking, and it becomes a horrible thing. But you know what would happen to me? I would count the pews, the number, because I would be worried about forgetting which pew I was in. Isn't that embarrassing? That's what I would do, because I would forget where I would be at, because I would never. I didn't think drinking the wine was sanitary. I mean, I drank the wine in the original, maybe a couple times, maybe like at Christmas time and maybe at Easter I would drink the wine, but I would always just eat the Eucharist, the bread, the wafer, and everybody's going for the wine, and so I would walk past them, and then I would end up going to the wrong pew, and I would be in the wrong seat. I would be like 2 pews up, because everybody's going for the wine, and I would skip it, and and then it would be so embarrassing. Everybody would look at you and be like, "Oh my God, you forgot where you sat? How did you do that?" Well, every single pew looks exactly the same, and I don't have a coat or anything to mark where my seat is. See how like neurotic I am, and isn't that crazy? That's the kind of thing I would do. I would count the pews before I would get up to remember where I was. Man, I must be dumb. No, seriously, that's what I did. Isn't that crazy? Anyway, I'm not a Catholic anymore, so but whatever. I don't know. Okay, let's continue the notes in the next one. Thank you for listening. Have a blessed day.